Alright guys, I am back again with another deck profile for Cardfight Vanguard Dear Days on Nintendo Switch. This time we got version 1 of my Keter Sanctuary Minerva deck. So version 1 is everything through the second additional card pass, so through the booster set 10. And this deck is another one of the encounter decks based on the Genesis unit Minerva from back in the original series. Which this is actually a deck I'm personally a little nostalgic for, since I did build a Minerva deck back during the G era, actually. But anyway, this deck is focused on filling up your soul and then soul blasting those cards out to pull off some pretty coul combos and get a lot of extra attacks in one turn. So as always, we will be going through the deck and then we'll show it off in one card fight for you to see it in action. So starting first with our ride deck, we of course have our grade 0 starter, which is Vivid Rabbit. So when it's rolled upon, if you win second, draw a card, standard D-Series starter as always, and of course the first of our Genesis encounter cards. So next up for the grade 1, we have Witch of Frogs Melissa. So she has two auto abilities, first of which says when this unit is rolled upon by a unit with only Genesis for its clan, you look at the top 5 cards of your deck, choose up to 2 cards from among them, put them into your soul, and shuffle your deck. And then she also has our second auto ability that says when this card is put into your drop from soul, if you have a Vanguard with Minerva in its card name, you can call this card to a back row rearguard circle, and if you called it, you may soul charge 1. So her first ability is a free +2 to your soul. You do get to check the top 5, so you do get a little bit of control over what you put into your soul. Now, we are running extra copies of Melissa as well as our ride deck grade 2 in the main deck, and both them have abilities that activate when you soul blast them out from your soul. So, generally speaking, those are your primary targets for this first ability. If you find any of them in the top 5, you can shove them into the soul to set up their abilities for later. And of course, that ability for Melissa is her second skill, which lets you superior call her to your back row rearguard circle when you soul blast her out. And you also get to soul charge 1, so you get to replace the resource as well. Which we have a ton of soul blast cost in this deck. Minerva herself actually has 2 different abilities that have a soul blast cost. So you'll have plenty of opportunities to soul blast this card out in order to superior call her to your board. There is no cost for that skill, so it basically just turns that soul blast into an extra +1 onto your field. So overall, very, very nice card. So next for the grade 2. We have Witch of Ravens Chamomile. Chamomile? I've heard it pronounced both ways, and honestly, I don't know which one is correct. I'm gonna go with Chamomile. But anyway, she too has 2 auto abilities. First of which says when this unit is rolled upon by a unit with only Genesis for its clan, look at the top 5 cards of your deck, choose up to 2 cards from among them, put them into your soul, and shuffle your deck. So the exact same skill as Melissa has, letting you get 2 more cards into your soul. Again, hopefully some of your combo pieces. And then she has her second auto ability that says when this card is put from soul into your drop during your turn, if you have a Vanguard with Minerva in its card name, you can counterblast 1 and call this card to rearguard circle. So again, a skill very similar to Melissa's, letting you superior call her from your drop after you soul blast her out. However, this ability is not cost free, it does cost a counterblast 1, but unlike Melissa, it is not limited to superior calling her to the back row. So that means if you soul blast her out during your battle phase, which you can do with Minerva's ability, then you can superior call her to your front row and potentially get an extra attack out of it as well. So this card is actually one of the most important combo pieces in the deck, and we are running extra copies of it in the main deck because of that. So having 1 guaranteed in our soul setup thanks to the ride deck is very helpful as well. So then lastly for the grade 3, we have Omniscience Regalia Minerva. So she has a continuous ability that says during your turn, if your soul has a grade 3 card with a Regalia in its card name, all of your front row units get power plus 5,000. So pretty good power-up skill, giving 5k to your entire front row if you have a grade 3 Regalia in your soul. So we're obviously running 3 extra copies of her for our Persona ride. And we also have a grade 3 Regalia Rearguard in the deck that we are running at 4 of. So if you get any of those 7 cards into your soul, you do get that continuous power-up. Next up, she also has our Activate ability that says once per turn, you can Soul Blast 1 to look at the top card of your deck and put it on the top of your deck or into your soul. So a pretty simple scrying ability, letting you see the top card, and you can either leave it on top or soul charge it. So it is a Soul Blast cost for this ability, so if you soul charge it, then you're just refunding the cost for the skill. So if you find something you want in your soul, like your extra copies of Chamomile or Melissa or what have you, then you can go ahead and get that piece into your soul. Or if you find a trigger or something that you would rather leave on top, you do have that option as well. So it can be a helpful skill for setting up your drive checks for that turn. And then lastly, she has her auto ability that says once per turn, at the end of the battle this unit attacked, if your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, you can Counterblast 1, Soul Blast 3, and discard a card with only Genesis for its clan from your hand to stand this unit, and it gets drive -1 until end of turn. So an extremely powerful skill letting you restand your Vanguard, giving you a 4th attack for that turn, as well as a 3rd drive check, since she only loses 1 drive. But also, since this ability does have a Soul Blast 3 as part of its cost, if you Soul Blast out some of your Chamomiles from your soul, you can use their abilities and Superior Call them to Rearguard as well, which means if you have 2 Chamomiles set up in your soul, you Soul Blast them both out and Superior Call them both to your front row, along with restanding Minerva, you can potentially have up to 6 attacks in 1 turn with this deck. Now that does require a little bit of setup, since you need a few specific cards in your soul. You need a Genesis unit in your hand in order to discard for this cost, and that will cost 3 Counterblast and 3 Soul Blasts in total as well. So a bit resource heavy and a bit piece reliant, but being able to pull off that big 6 attack combo can be very devastating for your opponent. And even if you can't pull all that off at once, you still can easily get 4 to 5 attacks with this deck. You do have the 1 Chamomile that's guaranteed to be in your soul thanks to the ride deck. So even if you just have 2 Counterblast available to you, you should easily be able to get 5 attacks on that 1 turn at least. So overall, a very, very cool card, and of course some absolutely fantastic artwork. So that is the ride deck. Moving on to the main deck. First off, for the grade 3s, we of course have our 3 additional copies of Minerva for our Persona ride purposes. Double frame rare, of course. Looking absolutely gorgeous. So next for the grade 3s, we do have 4 copies of Regalia of Wisdom Angelica. So another of our Genesis encounter cards. This unit actually was originally a break ride back in the day, and Minerva was a cross break ride for her. But she's been retrained in D-Series just to be a rearguard support for Minerva. And she does have a very, very nice auto ability that says at the end of the battle this unit attacked. If you have a Vanguard with Minerva in its card name, you can Soul Blast 1 to choose one of your Vanguards, and it gets power plus 5,000 until end of turn. Then you can put this unit into your soul and countercharge 1. So this card is the countercharge engine for the deck, which can be pretty important, since this deck does counterblast quite a bit between Minerva's skill and Chamomile's skill. So being able to regain that resource can be very, very important. Now she is a minus since she puts herself into your soul. However, if you're going to Superior Call Chamomile later in that battle phase, of course you'd be calling over top of her anyway. So opening up that front row rearguard circle is actually beneficial for the deck overall. Plus she also powers up your Vanguard, as well as potentially turning on Minerva's continuous ability as well, since she is a grade 3 unit with Regalia in her name. if you don't already have one of those in your soul. That will activate Minerva's ability to power up your entire front row. So an extremely good skill. It does cost a Soul Blast 1, but she puts herself into the soul after that, so she basically refunds her own cost. So an absolutely vital card for this deck, and one you definitely want to run at 4 of. So then lastly for the grade 3s, I do just have one copy of the normal order Regales piece, Gradius Greydall. So this is a Regales piece card, so you can only have one of it in your deck and use it a total of 1 time in a fight. But you can play this card if you have a grade 3 Vanguard with Persona Ride and you did not ride this turn, and it lets you activate Persona Ride. So this is just another option to guarantee that you get that Persona Ride off, which if you're doing your big push turn and you're going for your 6 attack combo, you definitely want that extra power gain from the Persona Ride to make those Chamomiles hit for some better numbers. And between potentially soul charging some of your, standard Persona Ride copies, or needing to just keep one in your hand to discard as your Genesis units to discard from Minerva's cost, this card can be a helpful option in order for you to more consistently get that Persona Ride boost. So that is all the grade 3s, moving on to the grade 2s. First off, we do have 3 additional copies of Witch of Raven's Chamomile. Like I already mentioned, it is, one of the vital combo pieces for the deck, so you want to be able to get as many copies of this into your soul as possible. Next up, we have 4 copies of Knight of Deity Decree, Thassus. So, she has 2 auto abilities, first of which says, when this unit is placed on rearguard circle, if you have a Vanguard with only Genesis for its clan, you look at the top 3 cards of your deck, choose up to 1 card from among them, put it into your soul, and put the rest on the bottom of the deck in any order. So just a helpful soul engine for the deck. Again, it is a semi-selective soul charge, so you can potentially get some of your combo pieces into your soul off this ability as well, while also just increasing your soul count in general. So then she has her second auto ability that says, at the end of the battle this unit attacked, if you have a Vanguard with Minerva in its card name, you can Soul Blast 1 and retire this unit, to choose a card from your hand or drop and put it into the soul, and if you put from your hand, draw a card. So the main point of this ability is to recycle your Chamomiles and or Melissas from your drop back into your soul. So that will be an option to potentially be able to reuse their abilities. Now again, she is a -1 since she retires herself, but again, clearing out that front row rearguard circle to Superior Call Chamomile can be helpful as well. And the Soul Blast cost of this ability does cause this skill to be a ±0 to your soul overall. So she doesn't increase the soul count, but she can get some important combo pieces back into the soul. And if you have one in your hand that you need to get into the soul as well, you do have that option to put from hand and draw a card to replace it. So overall, just an excellent utility card for this deck. So next up, we have 2 copies of Knight of Excision, Dior Ruing. I guess that's how you say that. But anyway, his auto ability says, when this unit is placed on rearguard circle, if your Vanguard has only 1 clan, you can Soul Blast 1 and discard a card from your hand, to choose a card with only the same clan as your Vanguard's clan from the drop, and put it into your hand. So this can be a helpful card if you don't have any Genesis units in your hand to pay for Minerva's cost. You can just call him, and for a Soul Blast 1, you can basically just swap any card in your hand with a Genesis from your drop zone. So being able to more consistently have that Genesis in hand to pay for Minerva's cost can be very helpful. You can, of course, also use this ability to just cycle a rearguard you want, like Angelica, back into your hand as well. So, very helpful card. So then lastly for the grade 2s, I do have 3 copies of the normal order, Wisdom of Beginning That Cleared the World. So you can play this with a Counterblast 1, and it lets you draw 2 cards, choose 2 cards from your hand, call them to rearguard circle if the grade of each of them is less than or equal to your Vanguard, and discard them if not. So this card is basically just a draw 2 and a call 2 for a Counterblast 1. So it does work out to be a Counterblast 1 for a +1 overall. So this is actually one of the few plussing cards in this deck, so it does help with your card advantage. And of course getting to draw 2 can help you find your combo pieces as well. So as long as you make sure you do have 2 cards in your hand that you would want to call off of this ability, then this card can be very helpful. So that is all the grade 2s, moving on to the grade 1s. First off, we do have 2 additional copies of Witch of Frogs Melissa. Of course, again, for her second ability to Superior Call herself when you Soul Blast her. So just another useful card to stack into your soul. And of course another Genesis unit in the deck to potentially discard from Minerva's cost as well. Next up, we have 4 copies of Apple Witch Cider. So she has 2 auto abilities. First of which says, at the end of the battle, this unit boosted. If you have a Vanguard with Minerva in his card name, you may return this unit to your hand. And then her second auto ability says, when this unit is put on Guardian Circle, if your soul has a grade 3 card with Regalia in its card name, this unit gets shield plus 5,000 until the end of that battle. So you can call this card to Rearguard Circle and boost with it, and at the end of that battle then you can just bounce it back to your hand. And since she is a Genesis unit, you can either discard her for Minerva's cost, or you can keep her in your hand and have her potentially be a 10k shield during your opponent's turn as well. So overall, just a very versatile card for this deck. So then the only other grade 1s we have are our Sentinels. So first off, we have our 3 copies of Aegismayer Dragon, just your standard perfect guard, as well as the 1 copy of the Nationless Blitz Order Elementaria Sanctitude, which you can play without paying the cost if your opponent's Vanguard has triple drive. So that is all the grade 1s. Moving on to the grade 0s, we just have our trigger lineup, which is 8 crit, 3 draw, 4 heal, and 1 over. So starting first with the crit triggers, we do have 4 copies of White Fang Witch Disma. So just your vanilla crit. Additionally, we have 4 copies of Blade Feather Dragon. Your crit with a skill. At the end of the battle it boosted. You can put it into your soul to choose one of your units, and it gets power plus 2,000 until end of turn. So this can just be another soul option if you're desperate for that little extra bit of soul in order to pay for a cost or whatever. You do have that option. Next up, for the draws, we have 3 copies of Protection Magic Prorobi. So draw with a skill. If your opponent's Vanguard's grade 3 or greater, get shield plus 5,000. So your 10k shield draw trigger. And then for the heals, we have 4 copies of Circling Sorceress. So just the vanilla heal. As always, if you want to play any of the effect heals, you can. And then lastly, for our over trigger, we have our 1 copy of Light Dragon Deity of Honors, a Martanoa. So his additional effect says, until end of turn, you also perform drive checks for the battles your rearguards attack. So most of the time with this deck, you're not going to have any grade 3 rearguards that you're attacking with after your Vanguard, since the only one we're generally going to have is Angelica, and you want to attack with her before Minerva. So most of the time you're only going to get 2 extra drive checks out of this, but any extra cards into your hand and extra trigger chances is always a very useful thing. So that is the deck. So we will go ahead and have our 1 fight with it. And I think we'll fight Kanji this time. And we will be going second. Very nice. And we open with our over trigger. Alright, so we'll discard that heal to ride Melissa. And our starter skill lets us draw. So then we'll just go ahead and attack. And he gets a heal trigger that is wasted. And I think I'll let that one through. And I'll go ahead and let that through as well. And we'll guard that one with that crit. Alright, so we'll discard one of those Angelicas to ride Chamomile. And Melissa's skill lets us look at the top 5. And we can put 2 into our soul. And we didn't find anything we really want in there, so we'll just shove those 2 orders, I guess. So then we'll go ahead and just attack. And we get a heal trigger, which we do get. So we'll heal 1. And the power is wasted, unfortunately. So now Favernil's skill would let him retire one of our rear guards, but we don't have any rear guards at the moment. But he's going to play Pandemonium Tactics to let him Soul Charge 4, which is going to power up Brainwash Swirler by a shitload. So we'll check his soul while he's doing all that. Let's see, he's got 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Oh, he's 1 grade short from being able to restand as a Vanguard. And he doesn't have the face-up damage anyway. So that's really big, but if he gets that, he'll get Soul Charge. So I think I'm actually going to go ahead and block that with my over trigger. And that'll prevent him from being able to restand his Vanguard this turn. So we can let that one through. And I think I'll go ahead and let that one through too. Alright, so let's see, I'll discard that heal to ride Minerva. And Chamomile skill, once again, lets us check the top 5, and we can put 2 to Soul, and we did find a Chamomile this time, as well as Melissa. So we'll shove both them into our Soul. And then, let's see, we can go ahead and play our order card, Wisdom of Beginning, that cleared the world. So we'll counterblast one. And draw 2, and then we can Superior Call 2. So let's see, we will call Angelica and Cider over here. So then I'll go ahead and use Minerva's Activate ability to Soul Blast 1. And we'll see the top card of our deck, and it is a crit trigger, so I'm going to leave that on top. And then I'll go ahead and call Dior Ruin. And I'll use his skill to Soul Blast 1. And we had to discard 1 from our hand, so we'll actually drop Cider. And add 1 of these Angelicas back to my hand to set up for next turn. So I think we are good with that. So we'll go ahead and attack with Angelica first, boosted by Cider. And he intercepts. And Asher Da will move to his Soul. So Cider skill will return her to her hand. And Angelica's skill will let us Soul Blast 1. So we'll Soul Blast that order to get 5k to Minerva. And put her into our Soul to countercharge. And since we got a grade 3 with Regalia in its name and the Soul, our front row gains 5k, thanks to Minerva's ability. So then we will go ahead and attack with Minerva. And we get the crit trigger we knew was coming. So crit to the Vanguard and power to Dior Ruin. And he gets a crit trigger. So now we can use Minerva's ability to counterblast. And we have to Soul Blast 3. So we'll blast out 1 Chamomile and 2 Melissas. And we have to discard a Genesis from our hand, so we'll drop Cider. So Minerva restands, and we can resolve Chamomile's ability to counterblast. And Superior Call her to the front row. And then Melissa's ability will let Superior Call her as well. Back here. And we will Soul Charge 1. And then our other Melissa will let us call her behind our Vanguard. And we'll go ahead and Soul Charge once again. So then we can attack once again with Minerva, boosted by Melissa. And he perfect guards. So then we can attack with Chamomile. We can just barely hit. He lets that one through. So then we'll attack with Dioruing. And he intercepts. So he survived, but we got him to 5 and we cleared off most of his board. Speaking of clearing board, he gets to retire one of our rear guards, but we do get to choose. So we'll retire... And we'll take out one of these Melissas. As Vanguard gains 10k and a crit. So now he's going to Soul Blast 2 and retire another one of our rear guards. And that Soul Charge will power up his Brainwash Swirlers. And let's see, if that hits, then he'll get the Soul Charge, which will power up his other columns some more. So I'm going to intercept that one. And let's see, I think I will go ahead and perfect guard that one, since it's 2 damage. So we will discard a Regale's piece, I guess. And he gets a crit trigger. And a draw trigger on top of that. So now we'll get to restand Favrenil and attack once again. So I'm gonna have to perfect guard that again. And hope that he doesn't get another crit trigger. He got a heal trigger. Okay. He does get that heal, but we'll survive at least. And that's 2 crits, but we will have to let that through. And we get a heal, which we don't get, unfortunately. So that is wasted. Alright, so now we can Persona Ride. So let's see, I'm going to check my soul. I have 1 chamomile, and that's all really. So I'm going to go ahead and call Thassus over here and use her skill to check the top 3, and we can shove one of these into soul. So we'll shove Thassus, and the other 2 will go to the bottom. So let's see, we'll go ahead and call Angelica over there. And then we'll call Cider behind Thassus. And we'll go ahead and use Minerva's Activate ability again. So we will Soul Blast 1. And check the top card of our deck, and it is a crit trigger. So we'll leave it on top. So I think we are all set up. So we will go ahead and attack with Thassus first, boosted by Cider. And he lets that one through. He gets a crit trigger. So now Cider will return to our hand. And Thassus will let us Soul Blast 1 and retire her. And we can put a card from our hand or drop into the soul. So we are going to put Chamomile back into our soul. And then attack with Angelica. So then Angelica's skill will let us Soul Blast again. So we'll Soul Blast out our other Angelica to give Minerva 5k and put Angelica to Soul in order to countercharge. So then we can attack with Minerva, boosted by Melissa. And he perfect guards. And we get the crit we knew was coming, so we'll stack that on Minerva. And we get a draw trigger as well, so we'll give that power to Minerva as well. So now Minerva's skill will let us counter blast, and we Soul Blast 3, so we're going to blast out both these Chamomiles, and then we discard Cider from our hand. So Minerva restands, and both of our Chamomiles with Superior call themselves to rear guard. So we will get our 6 attacks this turn. So now we can attack with Minerva once again for 53,002 crit. Oh, he's gotta lay it through. So this should get him right here. And yep, no trigger, so we got him with that. So there you go, that was my Minerva deck. I do like this deck quite a bit. It is deceptively piece reliant, but when you can get your big combos off, it does feel really good to play. So anyway, I will be back soon with more deck profiles. Next up, I will be doing another encounter deck with Maelstrom. So until then, I guess that's all for this video. So lots of luck to you and yours.